Hello, and welcome to Outspoken with Regina, where we bring bold truths and trusted voices on the issues that matter most to our community. I'm your host, Regina Davis Moss, and I'm so glad you're joining us today for another powerful conversation. Now, you know what? Outspoken is a monthly digital series from In Our Own Voice, National Black Women's Reproductive Justice Agenda. And each month, we gather incredible leaders to share insight, wisdom, and strategies from the front lines of the reproductive justice movement. This month's conversation is part of our Black August programming. We're going to get into what Black August is, but in short, Black August is a time of remembrance, resistance, and recommitment. Black August calls on us to honor those who have come before us, to deepen our political education, and to strengthen our discipline in the fight for liberation. Today, our theme is Reproductive Justice is the Way, Grounding Action in Community. And together, we're going to explore what it means to serve our community with intention and in ways that are rooted in care and designed to build lasting power. You know what? I like to say it in our own voice. We are doing liberation work. And in the reproductive justice framework, that means service is never about helping from the sidelines. It's about how we live our values each and every day. It's about how we show up. It's about in the meals that we share, the rights that we defend, and the spaces that we create for others to thrive. Now, in this moment, that's something that we've got to talk about. Our rights are under attack, inequities are deepening, and community care is definitely essential, not optional in this moment. So over the next hour, you're going to hear from some women who embody this work every single day. They're turning care into action, and they're doing that in a way that is creating lasting change. And before I close, I am so excited to share with you an exciting new resource that we just dropped this month. It's called In Our Own Voices, Reproductive Justice is the Way, a Community Practice Workbook. And it's designed to help all of us put the principles that we're going to talk about today in practice. Now, for those of you that are watching us live, we love for you to also be part of this conversation. So share your reflections in the comments, drop your questions for the panelists in the chat, and we're going to bring some of those into the conversation a little bit later. So let's dive into this conversation. I want to give each of our incredible panelists, Joy Williams, Justice Gaston, and Creighton Leigh, a moment to introduce themselves in their own words. Let's start with you, Joy. Tell us a bit about who you are and the power of the work that you're leading.
Well, now I say I am Joy. I start with that. I am Joy, and I have the great privilege of being the president of the NAACP New York State Conference, which is 54 branches across the state of New York. And I'm also a civic educator. I go around the country teaching people how to engage and participate in governing themselves. And I do that also through the Sunday Civics podcast, where every day people can join my Sunday Civics classroom every Sunday and learn how they can take civic action where they live.
All right, let's have you share next. Tell us about your role and the ways you're showing up for your community.
Had to unmic myself. Okay. Greetings. Hello, my name is Justice Gaston. I use she, they pronouns. I am a social justice doula. And that means that...
I love it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That means that I'm showing up in this space, marrying the skills that I have as a labor, birth, and postpartum doula with the skills that I have as an organizer. And that means I'm showing up in our communities, looking through that lens of generational trauma, making sure that I support my community just the same as I would a new family and a brand new baby. And that means with a lot of care, a lot of love, and a lot of intention. My work is not just rooted with, making sure that babies come into the world safe and joyous, but also through policy, advocacy, and education. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, and Creighton, please round us out. Share a little bit about your work and what you're most passionate about right now.
I'm Creighton Leigh. I am the founder of Wa Noir, which is a reparations-based organization, and we provide the basic needs that Black people need to get through their days. That's food, shelter, water, and as far as reproductive justice, we supply emergency contraception, daily contraception, and also we fund abortions. We have a holistic approach. It's very important to make sure that all of their needs are met so they can make informed decisions about their reproductive needs.
All right. Okay, so now that we've met our panelists, let's move on to our conversation about the power of community service and how it advances reproductive justice. One of the most powerful aspects of reproductive justice is that it's not just a policy framework, it's a way of life. And it's about how we show up for our people every single day, often in ways that don't make headlines, but are deeply felt and make all the difference. I'd like to start by hearing from each of you about the ways you serve your community. Tell us a little bit more about that work. I know you briefly introduced who you are, but what does it look like on the ground, and how are those human connections that you're making and the acts of care that you are doing every day, how are they fueling the movement? Remember, this is just, it's about the real everyday practices that move us forward. It's not about titles and descriptions. I want to make sure people understand this that are listening. Everybody can play a part in this movement. And so, Joy, I'm going to start with you. So much of your work is about connecting communities' service to building electoral power. Now, when those two forces meet, tell me about what changes and why is it so important for strengthening our democracy?
Yeah. Well, first I want to start because you mentioned about the work that we individually do every day in our communities and what we contribute and what we mean. And I love the suggestion that we lay aside titles first and talk about how we, individual LJoy, contributes to the community and contributes to our people overall in our democracy. And I do that in a number of ways, which is aligned with who I am in the title that I hold. One of the things that has concerned me and my family for some time is about the number of children that exist in our community who do not have what we take for granted. And that is the stability of family, that is the access and free access really to food, to shelter, to stable environments. And my husband and I have been foster parents for the past decade. And our home and our union providing that stability, that basic necessity of life, but also just pure love to not only the children that we have brought into our home, but to their parents as well. We have the benefit, most of the parents, of the children that we have fostered, they're under 25. Right. So these are young kids themselves. Some of the things that we just take for granted, like access to your Social Security card or how to get, a job or get back into school if you've fallen out, and providing that stability. So one of the things that I contribute to the community is being a safe space, being a trusted source of information, and being a space for children to grow and to thrive. As well as their parents. And given our community traditions, that we need to create or amplify those spaces that are safe spaces for our children to thrive because they are our future generations. So I do that without a title. Right. And then with the title, now being state president, is and just a civic educator in general, is connecting for people the service that they do and the civic participation to self-governance. Right. I tell the story all the time in examples and lectures. When we talk about the modern civil rights movement, we often talk about our ancestors and those heroines and who fought for our right to vote. But we don't talk about why they were fighting for that voice and that control. It wasn't to vote in presidential elections even. It was about being able to control their own lives and the communities and the institutions they built and that they were investing in. So they wanted to vote for a sheriff that would protect them from the Klan. They wanted to vote for a school board or a budget that would invest in the schools that they built, right? That the institutions they built, that they were paying taxes into, and they were not getting their fair share for their communities and their children. All of the things they were fighting for was community control of things that they had already built, and they were thriving off of, but were being raided or could be taken away at the drop of a hat. And now fast forward to where we are, where our greatest participation is in every 4-year elections, rather than, again, participating in our own self-governance. We have already demonstrated we can build institutions, we can build communities, we can build businesses, we can build families. During that period, we were also wanting the tools to be able to protect what we built. And so what I try to do through civic education and through the work of whether that's electoral power or governance participation in general is to bring that focus back that we still build, but we have to be active in our own self-governments to protect the institutions and the families that we continue to create.
Thank you. I think you just gave a perfect example of why we can not only vote every 4 years, right? I mean, you talked about the school board, you talked about the sheriff. Those are all local, state and local elections that we can make our voices heard. So thank you for uplifting that. I did, just for those that may not quite understand the connection, is there one example in particular that jumps out to you and how community translated into like increased civic engagement and political influence? I'm sure you have many.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't you want the other panelists to say something? Because we can be here all day.
Just whatever pops in your mind first.
One example of, civic action is, I think, whether it's the food drives, the other mutual aid pieces, and some of our, my other future co-panelists are going to talk about that shortly, helping neighbors. And those acts build trust, build reliability, build, I say this about young people all the time, they want to know that they'll see you again tomorrow. Right? They want to know that you are going to be reliable and engaging. So when you become that trusted voice, then when you're coming or you're engaging in conversation about something as electoral power and saying we can change things, you're believable. Right? So that start of mutual aid. And yes, I'm going to be here tomorrow. Yes, you can get food from me tomorrow. Yes, I'm going to be here next Wednesday. Yes, I'm, like that kind of community trust. And then when you say we can make a change in City Hall, we can make a change, we can impact the budget and maybe get additional funding, for a park, which I've seen also happen, people believe you, right? But if you are not a trusted person in the community, if you just swooped in, if you're doing so also only focus on the goal that you want and not what the community overall wants, then you're not a trusted. Then I don't believe you that, change can happen. I don't believe you that we can, vote someone out. And so the examples I have is when people are deeply invested, when people are committed, when people are from and engaged in the communities with their neighbors, they are able to make change and see those small changes as big wins. And so then it gives them, the wind beneath their wings to challenge bigger things like a governor, like a state budget, a city budget, or even a congressional candidate.
Thank you for that. Justice, let's turn to you and your work with the Real Justice Network. What does service look like for, day to day for you and your work, and why is that central to your approach?
Oh, Day to day is always different for us, but I can often be found in a hospital, at a jail, or in a courtroom, which is where our people are. Um, I do a lot of work at the intersections of criminal injustice and reproductive justice. And so we run a bail fund. And with the bail fund, oftentimes with our work being rooted in reproductive justice and for survivors of violence in particular. And when I say violence, I do mean domestic violence, intimate partner violence, sexual violence, and state violence. State violence is often overlooked, but it's often where our work is. And so when you have a situation where you are at school and your child is suspended, what do you do from there, right? Or there's a situation where Child Protective Services is knocking at your door and the cops are with them and they want to come in. Um, and so we get those calls, and what we do is show up. Um, we're consistent about that, especially with wanting to build trust in our community. Our community knows that they can count on us. And so day to day, it looks like us working with families to advocate literally for their freedom in many, many cases. Um, it looks like us going to bat, going toe to toe with a prosecutor, or me trying to talk to a nurse who is insistent on calling CPS because of our vernacular,
Right.
something they heard, the bias and racism that's embedded within the medical system. And so we show up. Um, we are rooted in the spirit of resistance, the same spirit that our ancestors had, many who were boarded those ships and said, before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in these waters, and went overboard.
Yeah.
That resistance. And for the ones who came over, who showed us what to do with cotton bark so that we couldn't carry the seed of massa, so to speak. Those things, those mages, marginalized genders, Black women who had the wisdom and ushered life, not just for Black folks, but for their folks too. And so we do the work in the spirit of our ancestors who literally had to pay for the freedom of our brothers and sisters. So when we're paying bail, it is literally in that spirit that we do it in. So we're showing up every day, doing whatever is called upon us to do, and it is always different, but it is always urgent.
I love that. Creighton, let's bring you in. In your work, you provide not only mutual aid, but direct giving to meet the needs of the community. How does that work reflect your vision of service, and why do you see it as essential to advancing reproductive justice?
I actually want to make a correction. I don't see Voix Noir as mutual aid because I don't
Okay.
require anything from the people I serve. It's reparations based, and my service to my community is getting reparations. My donor base are white people who understand I'm collecting reparations, who give so I can give money directly to Black marginalized genders. I believe in giving Black people autonomy. You know what bill needs to be paid. You know what groceries you need to buy. I don't like micromanaging people. I bring to this, I've had several careers. I was a case manager. I was a social worker. I was a disease surveillance investigator. I was a sexual health educator. So I bring all of those roles to trying to alleviate people. So my service to my community is problem solving, triaging, finding out what's important, what needs to be taken care of so they can move on to their next step. Because one thing about reproductive justice or needing an abortion or needing DNC because you've had, a medical incident or needing birth control. You might need these things, but you might also need your rent paid. You might also need daycare paid. And that's where I come in. I like to triage and help my community as much as I can so they can make the best decisions they can about their life, the most informed decisions. And that's why direct giving is important to me because I want to put the money in your hands so you can do what you need to do. I want to trust you and I want to show you that I'm going to be consistent in giving you that trust so you can show up for other people once you get on your feet.
Mm.
And that's sort of the model of Wild War.
Thank you. And thank you for setting me straight on that mutual aid. I don't want to, we got a lot to cover, so I want to try to move to our next conversation. But what you have very all of you highlighted is that each of your work centers how we really have to remember the relationships, the ways we care for each other, how the daily choices we make are important to not only those individually, but how do we stand in solidarity with them? And that serves as the foundation for everything that we are trying to fight for when we talk about liberation. Let's move on to the current climate. It's times like these that the way we serve take on even greater meaning because the service was never just about meeting needs. It's really about, as we talked about, building resilience, resistance, and the future that we know that we deserve. Joy. In this current political climate, how has your approach to connecting community service and electoral power shifted or strengthened?
I would say that our vision and what I've seen happening in communities is doubling down on what you would call like back to basics organizing, which I think because of technology and other things, we've kind of become sort of microwave in our organizing. And what I'm seeing now is people going back to those basics of talking to people, of getting, infusing their voices and what their needs are into what the policy should be, on what our strategy should be, addressing people's direct need so that they have the mental space and the time to be able to forward think and imagine what else is needed in their community. So that's what I see, and I hope, I know that's what I'm trying to focus our branches in doing in New York State, is that we have so many people that are disconnected, that haven't been so invited or asked, right? I think there's a stat that I used to say of like, not that many people have been asked to what would your future look like, or do you need for your community, or what do you want, right? And so that communication that is not tied to electing someone is important. And I say that even as a strategist, obviously, people have the long-term goals of increasing turnout and things like that. But if you want sustained community engagement, your campaigns can't always be centered on electing someone. It needs to instead be focused on those things that the community members and the folks said that they need in their community, that are the most urgent. And electoral politics can be a sub goal. It's just like, okay, in order to get to X, which is our main goal, we have to engage this council member. But if the council member is not engaging on what we need, then we need to move her and find somebody else, right? Like, it is a step on the way to the larger goal, which is what the community is organizing and saying that they need. And instead, we've become that electoral campaigns have become the end goal. And that gives people a letdown after that's done, because after you elect Obama, right, we're like, where's the change? Right? And so then when you can't be authentic and say to someone that, like, yes, there's a change and we're doing this or whatever, and there's like, wait, my conditions are the same whether it's Obama or Trump. Like, we forgot like what the larger goal was, right? And so that's what I'm seeing from a lot of folks. And that's because for some of the folks that are now leading in these spaces, or organizers or folks, we came up, like, that's how we were trained to organize. That's what we were trained to do, right? And I'm happy to see us return to that and re-educating people, particularly our community, that the goal isn't to elect someone. The goal isn't just representation for representation's sake. It is to get to the larger goal of breaking structural barriers that prevent you from having or living in thriving communities. That's our goal. Not just electing someone. So we stopped on the board, and we need to continue going. So I'm encouraged by that. The difficulty is that is not always a straight win, right? It doesn't just like, oh, it's a sustained campaign and we got it and we won in 3 months, right? And that's the reason why being authentic and being of and engaged in community is important, because people need to see that you are with them and engaged with them, and that you will be there tomorrow or next Wednesday or 6 months from now, because it is sustained engagement.
Thanks. Creighton, let's go to you. Any response to that? And, how is the current political climate, well, not just political, socially and economically, how is it shaping the kind of support you're providing?
It's making it more difficult, to be honest, because we've had to go underground, essentially. So working in secret, trying to find ways to communicate with people off the grid, trying to find ways to organize with people and meet their needs without eyes on us. So this current climate has made the work harder, but it's made it more necessary, if that makes sense. Because
yeah,
the resources are harder to find, but the work is essentially, it's harder to do. Again, had to go underground. This political climate has made, because a lot of organizers are afraid of carceral, actions from helping people get their, get their reproductive goals met. So to be honest, it's difficult. I don't have anything like inspiring or, hopeful to add to, other than it's becoming increasingly difficult to help the populations that I serve.
well, thank you. I mean, that's the truth. And, but I think what you're getting across is that the consistency is important. And so in order to be consistent, we have to be creative in the ways that we meet the needs.
They know how.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I was gonna say I would say my base, they know how to reach me. It's just become harder to have them ask for the assistance because they're even afraid of repercussions for asking. So it's difficult, the honest answer.
Justice, I see you shaking your head in agreement. Is that a similar experience for you? And how's your service, the work that you're doing, in how is it being impacted in this climate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, because we're facing something that we haven't before, and that is the threat of criminalization, the threat of jail time, just depending on where you are. I'm in Missouri, and so there it was after Roe fell. Missouri was the first state within minutes, and I do mean within minutes, to go ahead and sign a complete ban in our state. And the other thing that I'm going to name that has made this more challenging, believe it or not, are some of the allies who say that they are with us. If we look at what's happening with abortion amendments, constitutional amendments, ballot initiatives across states, the devil is in the details of those initiatives. They look really good on surface, but as you go deeper into the language, you will find that it really sells people out. So for example, Amendment 3 in Missouri, the word on the street when you talk to somebody who was trying to get you to sign up, they say, hey, you want to get rid of the bans. And of course, you want to get rid of the ban. So people would just sign that. But the language actually implement a permanent ban into our state's constitution via viability limitations. And so, it gave our already super Republican majority legislators the ability to define viability. As a birth worker and as a doula, that scares me. I know that no politician should be defining and giving a legal definition for the viability of a fetus, ever. This lends to personhood. And people want to ask, how does the government even get to come into a hospital room and take a baby? It's through personhood. And so we need to be careful, because what has happened is that because people have been passionate about restoring rights, they have not looked deeply into the language of these initiatives that have absolutely taken rights away. Right now in Missouri, young people got sacrificed. Young people do not have access to abortion. And if you are a person in my organization, we cannot even support young people anymore. I don't know if you all have heard about the mothers and daughters who are getting in trouble because mothers are assisting their daughters with finding support for abortions. It is a crime now. It has jail time attached to it. So it has absolutely made the work increasingly difficult, and reaching to people who never thought. People thought, oh, a medical provider or somebody. No, when it's your grandma, your auntie, your mama, who is now being brought up on a charge, when it is you who is being brought up on a charge because you lost in a natural way your pregnancy, we're talking about things that happen naturally to us. And if we look at the statistics of Black women in particular, we have more pregnancy complications than anybody else. So we are prone to this criminalization even more. So yes, absolutely more difficult. But that, I think, has made us more resilient, more resistant. And as you said, Regina, thinking more creatively about how we do what we need to do.
Regina, if I can, this is why I think I say a couple of things, right? So one, the education, right, of educating our community, not only the attacks that are coming, but also the sophistication of those who are targeting our communities and targeting our practices. And so consistently, even for the well-meaning folks, and saying, this is why this is a problem, this is why this language is a problem, and being able to communicate that. And so being in community allows you the space and opportunity to continue to educate people about the laws, the policies, but even the attacks and the well-meaning ones that are encroaching upon our communities. The second issue is, particularly when it comes to our reproductive health and the ability to control our own reproductive health, whether it's that or immigration status or, other things. Because we are such in a state of war and uncertainty in terms of that community becomes increasingly important. I think Thea mentioned about being able to communicate to the people who need the services, like that the same way to use social media or other things or whatever doesn't exist. But as she said, her people know how to contact her, right? Right. And so that's about building community and people knowing that you are, because you are present, because you are visible, because people trust her, right? Like that is, we have that underground railroad, if you will, to be able to communicate that pathway to service, that pathway to assistance. And while on the one hand, social media and technology has allowed us to expand our voices, even as we are doing right this moment, in the other instance, it has made us a bit, certainly not us on this call, but for a number of other people, it has made people lazy, in that the only way that they know how to communicate is via social media. And if that's turned off, they can't be organizers anymore. And I would say, like, the people that are before you right now are demonstrating how being authentic and being present and engaged in community, that your neighbors know, that your family knows, that, you know, your reach in the community, people know how to get in contact and conversation. Those bonds are what is important, because a data center or internet can drop out tomorrow. And how will we be able to engage, right? You know, you may see all of the documentaries and everything now talking about Hurricane Katrina or other national disasters, natural disasters, where people experienced, right, not being able to communicate or engage with people, but they were able to rely on community and individuals, right? And we have to double down on, you know, instead of trying to reach 5,000 or 5 million, you know, via internet, starting with the 5, the 50, you know, the 500 in person, and building rapport that way. And that is what's going to sustain us, because we have a greater history behind us of folks who didn't have the technology of that we have today, that we're able to do so much more. And that should be an inspiration of what we can do in the future.
You know, what I can't, you know, I'm in DC and I navigate the city every day. You know, there's a presence here that is intentionally trying to create fear, intimidation, oppression. And it can be hard for some people to want to continue to fight when they're seeing this there. And, you know, I want to know, you know, what, you know, we have people listening, you know, you're so committed to the fight. And, you know, what words can you offer for people in this moment? Anyone could jump in, feel free. It's tough, right? You know,
Because I don't
okay.
I don't want to wrap it in a bow, but we are in store for some difficult times ahead. And I think it will behoove us all to get in community, to know who your neighbor is, to know who the crossing guard is, to know who the person is at the corner store, to get to know the people, the faces, even if you don't know the names, because when it comes down to it, those are going to be your resources. Like if, you know, like if, you know, we have a grid power outage like we did 20 years ago, if, you know, TikTok goes away again like they keep threatening, we have to get in the community engaged. I think social media has done us a good service, but I think it's done us a disservice because we are not reaching out and touching people and getting to know people. And I think that's the only way we're going to get through these times, because I don't think electoral politics are going to fix us and fix this for us.
yeah. I think you're really talking about this, you know, community power and this collective action and why we need to get back to what we did so much, was just like really centering Black spaces, those places that we knew we could go. You know, there's some lessons that we can take from the past and bring forward, and how we knew where to go in the community to get the things that we needed, and very much the work that you all are doing now. Justice, I cut you off. I think you were getting ready to say something.
No, and well, Creighton nearly hit on it. It's like those safe houses, the spaces that we know, and creating even more of those. I think about my family. They were farmers. They had land, and they knew how to grow food, and so anybody could come down to the farm to get food. On those summers when I was in on the farm, my grandmother would send me down the road with whatever, and I didn't understand it at the time that she was bartering and trading with folks. They'd send me back with whatever she needed. My grandmother was also the medicine woman. She took care of everybody who was sick. Um, and really, I see that kind of revolution happening right now in the birth, with doulas and midwives who were once criminalized from even doing this, from supporting birthing people. And so I think it's tapping back into the resistance that we already know, skill sharing, there are some things that we've forgotten how to do. I used to watch my mother and grandmother can food at the end of the summer. You know, those kinds of things we need to do to preserve, to be able to feed ourselves, to be able to take care of ourselves, to be able to build economy for ourselves. And I do understand that every time we've done that, here comes the racial violence and terror. And we, you know, but we can't ever lay down, is what I'm going to say.
Mhm.
And we can for a moment to rest, but then we must rise back up. And it is okay to rest. For anybody who hasn't been getting their rest, especially you Black women, you better get some rest. You better take a nap. But then we get back up and we do what we know to do. And that is to continue to support each other and create our own spaces of safety.
Mhm.
Nobody will
Nice
come
coming to save us.
but us. We are the answers to the questions. We are the ones.
Joy, did you want to say anything?
Yeah. So one, I'm going to take that to heart, Justice, and I'm going to go do another nap in my break after our conversation. But, you know, I just want to echo the conversation and what I've been saying since we began is we have a long history behind us in which we've built institutions, built community, and built spaces for us to thrive, even when we were still contributing to a system that wasn't serving us. And so I would encourage people by saying, with that history behind us, that means that you have all of that embedded in your DNA. And those ponderings that you have sitting on the couch, you know what we need, you know what we ought to do, right? That means that you can find 2 or 3 other people and band together and create that space, even if it's small. So there are social workers amongst us. There are people who know how to do CPR, who have other skills, whether it be farming or other things. What things are needed in your community? And I'm not talking about Black community writ large in all of the United States. I'm talking about within your 6-block radius. What is your network or your followers, if you will, in your 6-block radius, in your building, on your block, right? That is where we start. That is where we start. And so, yes, you're part of larger collectives and larger pieces, but start where you are so that if you are disconnected from your online community, what happens offline? What happens with your family? What happens with the institutions in your community? I want us to change our frame from when we see something happen in our community. Oh, they closed this door, you know, oh, this is what happened. You know how they do. I want us to change that you are formed and a part of the conversation. So you don't have to ask and wonder what happened. You are part of it. You were part of either the decision or the understanding or the conversation about how something ended up the way it is. And that requires you to tap in. That requires you to serve. That requires you to be a part. Organizers, it's not as if we, you know, are picked one of 5,000 and only, you know, only that person can organize. Organizers come from the community and are not holding that title because they got advanced degrees. It is because they are connected and engaged in their local community, that they have the talents embedded in them. During the pandemic, there was this young girl here in Brooklyn who, during the pandemic, homegirl had whole club parties in alleyways. And I remember saying, I want to hire her as an organizer for NAACP because all I got to do is give her information. She got the organizing because I don't know how she got a whole bar set up, DJ, 5,000 people outside. How does she do that? Because she's an organizer, right? The dude that hangs out in the building, you don't know apartment he actually lives in, but he's present. And he, when somebody is bedridden or you need somebody to go to the store, you know how to reach him and he'll go to the store for you. All you got to do is buy him 2 Lucy's or give him a couple of dollars. Communication vehicle, right? Organizer, right? And so we have to stop thinking that organizers are only these intellectual, pontificators that, you have to aspire to be, but that there are talents and tools that our people have, and connect and engage with them in ways to benefit our overall community.
I want to add to that because that's why I was so nervous to talk, because I am not a speaker. I'm not an orator. I don't do this. But what I'm good at is finding money from white people and giving it to Black people. Like that is, I can do that. So I was very nervous about it because I don't have all the words. I do. I have the degree. I don't have the words, but I have the know-how. I really do.
And that's why we need you. You don't need to be an orator. What we need you to do is what you're doing. And again, that is what is important, is being able to lift that up. And maybe, you're not going to have a TED Talk and, all the other kind of stuff. If you want it, good. If you don't, that's okay. But we want you to be invested in what is important to you, what is natural to you, and what is also beneficial to the community. So we can serve and support you while you are serving and supporting the community.
And you just said it. You said, this is my skill. I know how to do it, right? And you bring your skill to the movement, which is what we need most. I mean, I talk to so many people all the time. Even some of the family mothers who will tell me, some even say, I didn't consider myself an activist at that time. I just saw a need and I knew that it wasn't right and I wanted to do something about it. And that's all it is. That's what this movement ecosystem is about. It's us all coming together saying that this will not stand and I'm going to do my part, however that is. We are getting so many agreements in the comments, too many to pull down on the screen. Some things I just want to make sure I'm lifting up are the words that keep coming up, which are community, adaptability, creativity. I'm going to say that again, community, adaptability, creativity. I only have time for a couple of questions. Kind of already answered it, but I want to just restate it so we can just make this plain for some people, if someone wants to start serving their community, but they don't know where to begin, what advice do you have for them?
Do it. Just move. Wild Noir started because someone needed a pair of sneakers. And I literally asked my timeline if they could help me buy a pair of sneakers for someone. And that's how it started. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be grand. Just fulfill a need.
And I would say that if it's also attached to, there are plenty of opportunities for you to serve in your community. Quite often people, dream up and just like, oh, I'm going to create this big organization and be part of a nonprofit industrial complex and I got to get grants and then whatever. And it's like, girl, you can go next door and help like package meals like where you need. We don't need to create a whole another institution. You could just show up every Thursday from 11 to 2, and help from there. And so really it is also surveying the community in which you live, in the building, in, the block, the immediate neighborhood, and seeing where there is a need and plugging in there. And, I say this all the time on the show because I give a lot of information and a lot of things that people should do, but I'm saying, I don't need you to do all of the things. I need you to pick one thing or a couple of things that you have capacity to do and be consistent with those things. So if it's that you're going to be consistent and you're going to show up every Thursday, 11 to 2, that is what you contribute to the community. Like, we don't need you to also burn out, right? And so there are enough of us that if everybody is doing something and contributing something, that our community is served.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's important to, especially depending on what it is that you're looking to do, see who's doing that. Reach out, volunteer. I think it is appropriate to create things when there isn't something there for you. But be mindful of harming the movement, the one that in which you are new to, that has probably been in existence, where people who have been doing work for years, and you just got awoken to it.
Mm.
Just be mindful, because that's where a lot of harm does come to us and to our work and our communities, from the newly passionate person who is shouting, "Justice, we need to do this." And I'm saying, look, this is what we've done and this is what we need to do. But they can't hear that, right? They want to come and save the patient. They're doing chest compressions. And I'm like, they're breathing, yo. So we don't need that. Pay
Right.
attention, right? Come in with the spirit of, I want to learn, with the spirit of service. Sweep the floor, make some coffee, like be there and absorb. And what you need to do, it will come. Somebody will ask you to do something, and there you go. But remember that. Remember that there are probably people who have been doing the work, who are engaged in the work, and probably know a whole great deal that you need to get learned. Even the language of things. Like, we had to tell people, stop using that imagery. That hurts us. That actually hurts us in the policy. So yeah, be mindful, but definitely do it. Definitely do it.
Thank you so much for those thoughtful suggestions, answers. We are going to have to move on to the next part of the live broadcast. But what I want to do before we close is, I want to, number one, give you a moment to let folks know how they can stay connected with your work. And in some cases, you talked about, for instance, Joyce said every Thursday, how can folks that are not in your local area support you as well? We'll start with you, Joy.
Well, you can connect with us if you're in the state of New York. The NAACP New York State Conference, NAACPNYS.org. You can also follow me on Sunday Civics or at Joy Williams on any of the platforms. Although I don't post as much on social media as I used to, because I'm offline organizing and it's hard to keep up with both. And so I prefer to be offline and try to connect that way. But my website is also ljoywilliams.com. And so you can see all that is happening. And, if you want to, and even if you're outside of New York State and want to model, what we are doing in New York and places where you are, we have our state convention is coming up, and we're kicking that off with a Black Policy Roundtable, where I'm bringing policy folks, union folks, elected officials, and everyone together to lay out, look, we're about to hit a period in state legislators where everybody's going to tell us we ain't got no money because of the federal government and the state budget and all the kind of stuff. So we need to be aligned on what our communities need and use our representation to ensure that Black communities are getting their fair share, and able to protect themselves and thrive even under the threat of this administration. And I want to hear no excuses about we can't. So we're kicking that off before we go into our larger convention. So I invite people to be a part of that, but then also to listen to Sunday Civics, whether you're on SiriusXM or on the website sundaycivics.org, to really get the information that I teach every Sunday of different ways that you can be civically engaged, and mainly on a local and state level, which is where real change can happen.
Thank you. Creighton?
If people want to keep up with me and learn how to reach out, they can go to voixnoir.com. That's VOIX. Oh, thank you. voixnoir.com. That is a very transparent website. It has everything we offer and all the ways you can help. You can also reach out to me at Creighton at Voix Noir. I'm very approachable. I'm very around. I don't have any panels or do anything. But if you ever need anything or need resources or need to network or need to know how to figure out something, I'm good at that. Please reach out.
Justice.
All right. People can reach out at our website, realjusticenetwork.org. We're also on Instagram. One of the things I don't want to miss the opportunity to be that organizer, and actually ask people who are listening, this is Black August, right? This is a time for us to study, learn, train. Um, this is a time for us to put what we know into action as well. For those who know the history of Black August and the prison abolition.
You know what, please, you know what, we said we were going to talk about it. Please take the moment to educate us.
George Jackson and brother Soledad brothers. Um, um, there was this movement inside of the prisons. Um, I'm sorry. My mind is jumbled because I had my mind on something else.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But it's a resistance that was mounted because of the conditions that were happening inside of the prison. And there are people who are working right now. We are particularly uplifting Crystal Clark, who is at the Huron Women's Correctional Facility in Michigan. She has been serving 16 years for a crime that she did not commit. She was pulled away from her 1-week-old baby, and has been away from her family for all of that time. But here's the thing. Crystal has developed mold growing inside of her body and in her ears in this facility. She has a mold allergy, and we are fighting to get her a medical release. She called me the other day. She could barely speak. She can hardly breathe. And she has been facing retaliation for speaking out about not just what's happening to her, but what's happening to dozens and dozens of women in that facility. And please look her up, Crystal Clark. I would love for people to support our Black August action, which we are taking photos that say free Crystal Clark. People are emailing them to us, and we're going to do a creative action with that. But when we talk about something that we can have an impact on, something that we can do, we can take a picture. We can send this in for our sibling. We'll do the work of making sure that it gets that it goes where it needs to go. But taking that step can help us. We are talking about decades long issue. And it's not just in that prison, it's prisons all across this country. But that one in particular, it has been documented that is what is happening there. So I ask, in the spirit of Black August, for a comrade who is incarcerated and is experiencing these conditions, much like the conditions that the Soledad George Jackson experienced in their revolution and their resistance to the system, we are resisting the system and fighting for our sibling on the inside. So thank you for allowing me to take space for that. Her name is Crystal Clark. Her name is Crystal Clark.
Yeah. Yeah, I thank you for just not only talking about the origins of Black August that, honors Black political prisoners and freedom fighters, but also reminding us how it's also a time for reflection, studying, and of course, strengthening the Black liberation movement. Before I close and go on to our next announcement, I just want to thank you again. Thank you so much for bringing your wisdom. Thank you for all the work that you do each and every day. I just can't thank you enough for being in this fight, even during these times. And everyone that's listening, please follow, support these sisters. They're doing incredible work. Now, in my last few moments, I am so excited to talk to you about a new resource. This conversation today has been about service and how it fuels the fight for reproductive justice. And that service isn't just an act, it's a practice that we nurture, we sustain, and we pass forward. And so we have a brand new resource that is called Reproductive Justice is a Way, a Community Practice Workbook. This workbook is designed to help individuals, organizations, and communities put reproductive justice into action in a real and practical way. It includes tools, it includes prompts, it includes activities that reflect the kinds of care and the kind of service we've been talking about today. It's everything from building intentional relationships to organizing around shared needs to sustaining ourselves. We talked about taking that nap, remember, but also sustaining each other in the work. And so it's meant to be a living resource, something that you can return to again and again as your work grows, as your community needs evolve. And I'm just going to, show a couple of the pages here, but I want to ask you to keep, bookmark this, keep returning to it. What you're seeing is the reflection prompt. You're seeing the community mapping activity. You're seeing a planning worksheet. Here's one of my favorite sections, which is a community care mapping exercise that helps you identify your existing networks and how you can strengthen them. So those of you that ask, what can I do? Here it is right here. Here's a section with action planning tools. So you can take your ideas from vision to action with concrete steps and timelines. You'll also refine the reflection prompts that I talked about throughout the workbook to help keep your work grounded in your values and connected to the bigger picture of reproductive justice. So you can download this workbook for free, starting today. Just visit us. You can see a QR code. We're going to pop that up there too. There it is right there. I encourage you to share it widely with your friends, your colleagues, your community. And it's our hope that this resource will support you in turning care into action and action into sustained collective power. So again, don't forget, you can download the workbook, use it with your organizations, your communities, your groups, with your friends. And don't forget to tell us how you're using it. We want to hear your stories, want to see this work in action. We are going to be adding some other sections around personal safety. As I close, again, stay connected with us on Facebook, on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube. All of that across all of our socials is Black Women's RJ. So you can never miss an episode of not only Outspoken, but all of the resources that we are making available to you. And then you can also share those. Before I go, I want to give you a sneak peek of what's coming next. We're going to be doing a live podcast in DC, special date and time, September 21st, and it's going to be a mashup with none other than Elizabeth Booker Houston and Jasmine Burton. The No Distractions podcast and Outspoken podcast are coming together. It's going to be a powerful conversation. You won't want to miss it. So stay tuned for the more details. I'm going to end with, this is Black August. We honor the legacy of those who came before us by deepening our commitment to each other. Community care is resistance. Service is strategy. And together we have the power to create the future we deserve. I'm Regina Davis Moss, and this has been Outspoken. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, stay outspoken.
In a time when our rights and our lives are under attack, we need bold truths and trusted voices leading the way. Outspoken with Regina brings policy, power, and purpose together, uncensored, unfiltered, and unapologetic. Now streaming wherever you get your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, and speak truth with us. This is Outspoken with Regina, and we're just getting started.